Knowledge is power, and this is powerful stuff. Wellness Education Cannabis Advocates of Nevada present the We Can 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour with the We Can radio team. For the next 60 minutes, we'll take an in-depth look at the cannabis reform revolution sweeping the nation. Now, let's fire up the news hour. Here is the We Can radio team.
Hi, welcome to our show, everybody. We're back. Yay!
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. This is Las Vegas, Nevada Cannabis News, Weekend Cannabis News, and we're back on the air. After a little hiatus of about a year, we're back, guys. So
Happy to be back.
Yes, it's been a while.
Very happy.
Definitely. Well, I'd like to start out by thanking everybody that came to our Halloween party. We had like 250 people there, and it was amazing.
Outrageous turnout.
Definitely. I'd like to thank the Jameson family, Las Vegas Relief, Michael Jameson, Red Dragon Brothers, Nature's Kindest,
Las Vegas Medical Marijuana Association.
Coconut and the Clue.
Coconut and the Clue. Let's see. Also, Cushed Out Clothing. Who else was there?
All of our volunteers.
Oh, all of our volunteers, especially when I thank all of our volunteers.
Yeah, without you guys, we couldn't make these things happen.
Definitely. So we have just set the bar for Halloween parties now very, very, very high. And, we like to be very, very, very high.
I think you just said it best at the party, Jen. Our only problem next year is going to be how are we going to top this one? So
Exactly.
we have a whole year to work it out. So.
I've already got a few ideas how to make the next one even better, so.
Definitely. The dab bar was just amazing. There were so many slabs out there that it was outrageous. Nature's Kindest also brought a, what was that machine? The
rosin press.
Oh, the rosin press. Did you guys get any stuff pressed?
No, I watched it work, and it was pretty incredible to have this little machine that any patient can bring their bud and be able to turn that into a concentrate. And it's not really a concentrate. It's just some of the essential oil that is left over in the paper that I think that's just a new, incredible way for people to be able to access their medicine.
It like squishes the oil out of
Yeah,
it. Squish.
Perfectly safe, unlike blasting butane or BHO. It's just used heat and pressure, nothing else.
Is this kind of like a supersized version of what you see on YouTube with a hair straightener and some parchment paper, and you just kind of squeeze it real hard? Is this an industrial version of that, basically?
Absolutely,
I think.
Yeah, and I've experienced in the past before July 1st the hair straightener, and unfortunately the hair straightener, when you step on it, it's not too happy after a period of time.
No doubt. I broke one myself experimenting, just giving it a try.
Mm-hmm.
It works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we also had cannabis tea there, and 5.5 gallons went boom, just like that.
Yeah, that was delicious. What about the mobile tester?
Oh, that was
who
incredible.
brought that?
That was the Las Vegas Medical Marijuana Association.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool toy.
That was about $23,000 worth of machinery, and you put about a gram of medication right on the little reader, and then it reads the THC. Did it do the terpene profiles or just the
Not that I was aware
cannabinoids?
of. I thought it was just the THC and THCA
And
CBD.
and CBD.
That's
Okay.
right.
And
That's still pretty cool.
props to Kurt. He got the highest in the group at 34.3
34.3, yeah.
For
THC. Yes,
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
On my critical.
on
My
his critical kush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
just a few years ago, that's what
And
hash
it was
at.
the first test right after they
Are you sure you didn't
recalibrated
sprinkle
it.
a little Keef in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, positive.
Cheater. Absolutely not.
positive, and you know what? And he grows all organically, no nutrients, nothing artificial in the in growing the plant. So
Yeah, and only a couple plants at a time, so they get lots and lots of love. So
that's a secret to THC is love, right?
Well, I just think this is going to start a whole new era of how we grade cannabis in a judging platform at these future competitions and things like that. Now that we have a definite way to do it on site, if the science is proven and all that, and the numbers are accurate, which I would assume they are, there is no more guesswork in it. Everyone has always said, "Oh, well, mine's the best or mine's this." Well, now we actually have definitive science to back it up and say mine is proven to be the best. There's no question anymore.
Well, yeah.
You know, it's not a matter of opinion or how many friends you brought to vote for you.
I mean,
Yeah, right?
I think the one misconception out there is that because you have a high THC strain, that this is better than a low THC strain, and just the whole cannabinoid profile beyond just the CBD, the THC, the CBN, also CBG, the terpenes too as well. I don't think that's getting enough attention out there, that the total profile for the cannabis, and some people just use that THC as their judgment of this is the number one or best cannabis.
Of course, it just seems like a disproportionate amount of growers in not only the medical but the recreational field are going almost solely for high THC content in order, because that's just what the market dictates. That's why the OG strains, I believe, have come to dominate the market here in the past decade or so. It's just because they flower fast and they have really, really high THC contents. And we could go into why it's harder to find sativas due to similar reasons, but
the couch lock doesn't even come from the THC or the CBD. It actually comes from myrcene. They've proven if you have a sativa strain that has myrcene in it, you will get knocked the heck out.
Yep. That's why the 9-pound hammer from Green Life Products is selling so well, because
Las Vegas Relief.
Yeah,
Las Vegas Relief, really.
Yeah, they're running. Are they still running their specials on that right now?
Yeah, $40 for an eighth at Las Vegas Relief. They just come in and mention the $40 eighth special for 9-pound hammer, and it's flying off the shelf. So get on down there.
There you go, guys. You heard it here. Go down to Las Vegas Relief and ask for $40 eighths of 9-pound hammer.
Right on. All right, you guys, on the phone, we actually have somebody from Ohio. If you guys didn't know, today they are voting on a bill that has both legalization and medical use for cannabis. And we have an activist on the phone that actually works in Ohio and has been working on this campaign. Teresa, are you with us?
I am. Hi there. How you doing?
We're doing great. We're back on the air, and you're our first guest.
Wonderful. Well, first, I'd like to correct you. I'd like to let you know that I am not with Responsible Ohio. I do not work with that campaign.
Okay.
Is Responsible Ohio, is that the issue 3? Is that what Responsible Ohio is?
That is. Responsible Ohio is issue 3, yes.
Can you explain a little bit what issue 3 and issue 2 are?
Absolutely. Issue 3 is a monopolistic approach to medical cannabis. It creates 10 grows, and those grows parcels are actually in the amendment to the Constitution.
Oh, so basically it's going to be really hard to undo it.
As a constitutional amendment, yes, absolutely. In order to adapt the business model, we will have to have another constitutional amendment to do that. Now, issue 2 was put on the ballot by our legislature after they recognized what Responsible Ohio was doing. What it is my background is I was an executive director of a political action committee in 2011 to get it on the ballot. So I do have firsthand knowledge of writing amendments in the state of Ohio. And the specs, for lack of a better word, for an amendment in the state of Ohio are very, very easy. The summary has to match the ballot language. You have to get 1,000 signatures. The OAG's only job is to make sure that summary matches that ballot language. And then you get the required signatures, and then it gets on the ballot.
Wow.
When I was the executive director of the Political Action Committee, I would say, wow. In other words, I could write in a ballot language, Teresa gets free cannabis at every store. And as long as that summary says Teresa gets free cannabis at every store, and we get the signatures, if that passes, that means I get free cannabis at every store.
Woohoo!
I found that to be, I know, I thought about it, honestly, a couple times. But honestly, for future generations and looking at the ethical nature of that, really working with people with integrity are going to be really important. What these guys have done is they also discovered this, and they put actual parcels, numbers, in the amendment to the Constitution.
So basically, they can have these big grows or whatever it is on these parcels that belong to certain people, and then once it's voted for, these people have a monopoly because the law says that their land is what's used to grow cannabis?
And process.
And
not just
process
grow,
it.
And process, so even the oils. And again, we don't know who these people are. There's a couple of people whose faces have been allowed to be used. For example, the 98-degree
Liquid
Nick.
shake.
Lackey, Jessica's ex-husband's ex-husband.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his name is his face is out there. There's a couple of other players.
Are we gonna have a marijuana of the sea strain out there? Is that in the works?
I've heard some,
I don't know.
I've heard some prominent Ohioans' families are involved also. I heard William Taft's great-grandchildren are deeply involved in one of the grows, as well as some other potential political figures. It's it's disappointing that it seems to have been going that way. What about the competing measure issue two? What's the story with that? I hear that they can both be passed potentially at the same time, and then there will be conflicting effects, which will cause it to go to court immediately, or which one goes into effect first, or will neither of them go into effect if they both get voted on? Like, how does that work?
Well, right now, in order to understand what issue 2 is, I think I really should explain it a little bit to you.
Thank you.
What the legislatures did is they put together another amendment, and they put it on the ballot very quickly. And this amendment requires any other amendment that is going to change the tax code for individuals. And that there was one other stipulation. I have to apologize. I don't exactly remember what it is right now, but it's something similar to that. What will have to happen with the amendment process if somebody wants to change the tax code, whether it's for individuals or for corporations, this will have to go in front of the ballot board in the future. If the ballot board agrees to it, then it can go to the ballot. So what it really does is it stops anybody from coming in and writing Teresa gets free cannabis at every store.
So it kind of vets it.
It changes it.
Mm-hmm. So if 2 and 3 pass, is that what you're looking for out there right now?
Well, me, so personally, I'd rather not say where I'm at. I just had to resign from an organization that represents 60 families with catastrophically ill children. Mm-hmm. So it's my preference not to say where I stand on this issue at this point. But, by the way I talk, I think you could probably figure it out.
Sure.
But what I will say, if both pass, what our current administration, the Secretary of State, says is that the issue 2 will be implemented, because that's implemented immediately. Issue 3 would have until the first of the year. So they would look at which is first implemented. Today, I heard experts speaking about whether one gets more votes than the other. What it really comes down to is this is going to the Supreme Court no matter what. We want to find out, first off, can you really go in and write yourself a monopoly for medicine for the disabled that are defined in Section 4112 of the Ohio Revised Code under the Civil Rights Commission? Can somebody actually just come in and write an amendment for the disabled and say, hey, I'm now going to be taking care of all their medicine? We don't know.
So where does this leave the patients, Teresa?
Oh, this is absolutely a horrific situation for the patients in the state of Ohio. It's terrible. The poor families, with the 60 families with the catastrophically ill children, they've done a phenomenal job at staying away from this. They've stayed away. They have put their heads down. They worked very hard at educating our Republican administration. They did a phenomenal job at educating. Our Republican administration fully has a phenomenal grasp and concept now of cannabis concentrates, a phenomenal grasp of the regulatory systems of other states. So I'm very proud of these families. But our administration has not acted. They have not done anything. So what we've done here is we've put our patients in the state in just a horrific position.
This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is actually what I was really afraid of, because they lumped in recreational with medicinal in this. And is this the same thing that we're talking about? That they lumped recreational in with medicinal on this, and so if it doesn't pass, then medicinal doesn't pass?
Absolutely. And the reason that I have such a major issue with that was because the language, prior to the language getting turned in, I believe that these individuals spoke to national reform. I know they spoke with our nonprofit, and all of us begged for them to do a medical amendment, and said this is what they came up with. So our medical patients are the ones who they're holding out front. You have desperate people who need medicine. Now, when you really look at the ballot language, that's what you really have to go back to and look at that ballot language. There is no guarantees in that language. They didn't even have to do medicinal. There's no guarantees.
Wow.
And there's a good chance they won't, because we hear that a lot when they say, well, what do we need to do medical for when we just legalized it?
I believe in Oregon, they've been trying to unwind it for a while now.
Which is totally wrong. I believe personally that we should have both, and that the recreational or adult use side, the taxes generated from that should be used to support the medical program so that the patients aren't pulling $300-400 a month out of their pocket for medicine that they need to survive.
Well, I do know that Minnesota right now, which is a similar business model, which is just a couple grows. I think patients are getting charged $1,200-1,300 a month, which is absolutely absurd. This is the plan to put a couple more seeds in the ground. So obviously that business model that Responsible Ohio is proposing has never been proven.
Would issue 3 let patients grow if it passes, or would just
so when I asked the author, I asked who his grow advisor was. He didn't have one. What this will do is it will allow people to go and get a license. There's no guarantee for this, by the way. There's no guarantee. It doesn't say shall happen, so there's no guarantee in the language.
It says may happen,
but they
right?
propose, that the commission has to do this. But they propose that each individual in the state of Ohio can have 4 plants. Okay, but they're only allowed to have 8 ounces.
Oh my!
Oh.
That math doesn't work.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like the math we have here in Nevada, where we're allowed 12 plants and 2.5 ounces.
Every 14 days.
Yeah, every time you harvest your plant, you're automatically illegal. If
you're a good grower.
That is definitely a problem. Well,
even if you're a bad grower.
It's a problem. I heard an argument from someone from Responsible Ohio on television today, and they were kind of attacking this person. They're like, "Oh, you set up this monopoly," and they weren't denying it. They basically said, "Look, we've spent $25 million putting this campaign together, and we were the ones who funded it, and this money didn't come from nowhere. So basically, that's capitalism, and that's it." So, what would you say to them?
Well, number one, I would say, why didn't you listen to national drug policy reform? Again, when I started in this in 2011, 2012, it has been, Teresa, go to your legislature. Have a funded lobbying effort with the legislature. Your legislature is very friendly to medical cannabis. And after working with it for the last year, I absolutely agree to it. I think they're absolutely friendly to this. Number one. Number two, we don't know who the real people are who are funding this campaign.
No transparency.
We do know there's no transparency. Not that I'm making any accusations, but there are heroin dealers out there. There's a company called Monsanto out there. There's also CBD scammers.
Oh.
I repeat that again. There are CBD scammers out there.
Sure.
We don't know who is behind this. And if the people are not going to be transparent so that we all know what kind of medicine is going to be made and provided for sick and dying, our most catastrophically ill, vulnerable patients.
Are there any requirements for laboratory testing?
Excuse me?
Are there any requirements for laboratory testing on the medicine?
There's no requirements now. At this point, they have not only set up 10 grows.
That's great for the growers.
They also set up 4 labs. So,
wow.
So the labs, one of the labs is in Athens, but there's no grow anywhere near it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have to grow and then ship every other product to Athens to be tested. And Athens is in the southern part of Ohio, so the southern east part of Ohio. The grows are very far away. I mean, again, the entire business model is absolutely, I believe, problematic.
Do you believe that there will be trickle-down trouble? Let's say it passes, it gets implemented. We saw potential issues with our local regulatory board, like the county commission, city councils, things like that were hesitant to allow product being produced in other parts of the state to be imported to Clark County. They wanted the local growers to be represented in this, that, and the other, and there was a big dust up about that. Would you see any trouble with that? Maybe the Cuyahoga County people don't want people from the other counties bringing their stuff in, and vice versa. If there's beef between those, this sounds like it sounds like there's a lot of friction, and it could cause a lot of potential trouble. Would you anticipate any of that, or has that been dealt with in the ballot language, or was that even not addressed also?
Well, I haven't heard it that way addressed, and thank you for saying a big dust up when you're dealing with Las Vegas. Ohio is an agricultural state. You can't go from one end of the state to the other without traveling through hundreds of miles of farms. No farmers are involved in this industry. There's let me repeat that. We have cut off all of the Ohio farmers, all of those great Ohio breeders, which I'm going to say flat out. We have great Ohio breeders out here. Meigs County Gold. We have some great cannabis. All of those breeders have all been cut out of this industry.
Well, what about the farmers who were not growing cannabis, the farmers who were doing industrial corn crops and things like that? Have they shown any interest, or have they been shunned out of the industry due to the fact that they might receive federal subsidies from the farm bills? It might be jeopardizing that. I'm not exactly sure what the politics are surrounding that out there, but has that been touched on at all?
The farmers are not very happy that they're being cut completely out of the industry. They're absolutely, they're angry. And please remember, again, this whole amendment language was a choice. It didn't even choose. They didn't even choose to put hemp in the bill the language.
So if issue 3 did pass, couldn't your legislature make changes to it, open it up to more people instead of the 10 sites that issue 3 is, or is it locked into the 10 sites, or some of those other things that with regards to issue 3? Can they expand and change certain things?
Rework it?
Yeah, rework it.
They are unable to rework a lot of it. What they did is the Responsible Ohio people put one part in that in 4 years, if there's not enough cannabis being grown, then the commission can have additional licensing for growing. But it does not have any type of language such as merit-based application process. It just says that licensing can be opened in 4 years for more people to grow cannabis.
Not shall be, but can be if.
Maybe.
If.
Yeah, if
I don't think
the
they
10 have
shall.
friends
I
they
have to
want
go
to.
back, but again, we are also looking at, in the conservative state of Ohio, we're looking at 1,200 stores. All 1,200 stores have to buy from those 10 grows.
Yeah, that's what I thought was crazy. They could have one dispensary per 1,000 people, and so that would be 1,150 for the state of Ohio buying from 10 growers.
And we must also remember that in no way, shape, or form in that amendment does it say merit-based application process. I've never heard those words out of the executive director for Responsible Ohio's mouth. I've never heard him say the dispensary licenses are going to be given out through a merit-based application process.
Hey, can we have me and Perry can have a kiosk in the mall with our dispensary kiosks? All the malls in Ohio. Is that possible, Perry? You think?
I'm for it. Absolutely. This is. How the hell did they get away with this?
Well, they got away with it, just like Teresa was saying, because if the bill language meets
it's not like here in Nevada.
Yeah, if the bill language meets their little synopsis of what's going on, then it's accepted. And then if you get 1,000 signatures,
it's just
wow,
like that.
we're party time.
Mm-hmm. And that's just it. And again, I go back over to, I don't know how long you guys have been around, but I'm the founder of the rights-based language in the state of Ohio, which just created rights for the disabled, created rights for the industry to exist, created rights for distribution, processing, growing, created a commission to oversee it in order to give out fair and transparent licensing for the state. That was the rights-based language. It's completely the opposite to the free market language. And to see that some people have come into our state, again, I'm trying not to bash too much here because, it's very disheartening to see this happening. And now to see on the last couple days the push into getting this done, Ian James, the executive director of Responsible Ohio, made a major announcement that drug cartels have threatened his life. And the same day he started putting families of catastrophically ill children on TV and in the paper and all over the state. Now, how irresponsible is that of him, that he's saying drug cartels are threatening him, and then he's going to start using the faces of children
that could have
500
waited.
or 600 seizures a day.
The drug cartel thing could have waited a week.
Well, not for sensationalism, and I thank you for saying irresponsible, because after hearing this, I was thinking irresponsible.
Absolutely, it's just
and unethical. And you have, he announced also that he's used $150,000 of funders' money. I went right to the families because again, I resigned because I had people using my first and last name and I had to get out of there for the safety of my children. I wanted to find out if those families have all made sure that they signed some type of a contract with him, that he's going to be using some of that $6 million that he's making to protect their families if their families get threatened. I don't know if you heard me correctly. Yes, I did say that his company is going to make $6 million passing this amendment.
Wow. Wow. And he's putting the children and very sick people right out there, their faces out there on the front lines for this battle while he's being threatened by cartels. That is irresponsible, Ohio.
And we don't know who's funding the campaign because he's not telling us. He just has a couple of people out there whose faces are out there.
I would assume that the Marijuana Policy Project is putting in
El Chapo.
a significant El Chapo. Hell. That's what people want to think, but I would assume that MPP is probably putting in a lot of money. I would assume Drug Policy Alliance has probably put in money, and I would assume they probably don't want people to know about it. The same reason why they didn't want people to know about it when they were passing the Alaska recreational and ballot initiative recently. They were, how do I put this? The Alaskans were very nervous about having outsiders coming in and telling them how to do business. And I would assume people from Ohio, Ohioans are kind of protectionist also. They don't want outsiders coming in telling them their business. And if this whole big marijuana thing gets out, I would assume that would sour a lot of the more conservative voters out there that are going out there today. So, I would say that they probably kept as low of a profile as possible.
Well, I have to also say that, because I was doing what I was doing at the level that I do communicate with the leadership of both of those organizations. And I can tell you that there are some big players in MPP from Ohio. And I'm not going to say too much, but I don't think that they're real keen to what's happening here. When it comes to Ethan Nadelman, I know that they asked that organization to review the language prior to their submission. And again, they were told do a medical.
So DPA recommended a medical, and they just were like, nah.
Kick rocks, yeah.
MPP did, and it's my understanding. Well, I know as a fact at the beginning of a Responsible Ohio, they started to say MPP reviewed our language, DPA reviewed our language.
Well, they said reviewed the language.
That very quickly. That you no longer hear Responsible Ohio saying anything about DPA or MPP.
Well, they're saying they reviewed the language. They're not saying they approved the language.
Right.
Which is,
you absolutely got it.
Yeah. Well, Teresa, thank you for calling in from Ohio on this day. I'll be talking to you tomorrow about what's going on in your state and what's happened. When do the polls close in Ohio?
Oh, I think they close about 7:30.
7:30.
Then, a couple hours.
So a couple hours.
Yeah, and I'd like to just throw one more thing at you
Sure.
and the audience, because I think this is very important. In my recommendation to our executive branch and legislative branch, I've really stressed one thing. We have 24 medical cannabis states, and not one state has focused on educating our healthcare professionals prior to passage, during passage, or after passage. These are the most well-educated people in our society. Physicians go to school for, how many years in order to become a physician, and then you're asking them to recommend a, quote, illegal drug to their patients. I find this to be very problematic, and it's my recommendation for every state to absolutely focus on getting your healthcare professionals educated in the endocannabinoid system so that they can make common sense, intelligent decisions when recommending this medicine.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, regardless of the conflicting language potential and whatever's going on out there, I'm going to be keeping my fingers crossed for you guys out there. Seriously, every battle won is a battle toward ultimate victory. So, thank you for all the work you put in.
Not everyone, because unfortunately, I have to say that these same people have already announced that they want to bring the same business model to Florida, Missouri. I heard something about Arizona. Ian James has announced very loudly that they want to go and bring this same business model across the country, especially the states that have ballot initiatives.
Wow.
So we all need to remain, in my opinion, diligent on making sure that we keep our patients in the forefront and not allow corporate cannabis to come in and take over and regulate it to the point where our patients can't even get the medicine that they need.
Well, on that note, will you be voting yes on ballot 2 or 3? Oh yeah, well, she won't say. Well,
again,
you won't say.
she won't say.
You won't say. Okay.
Very, very ill.
Okay.
I'd rather not say.
Okay.
But know that today I was on the phone with the Ohio Attorney General's office. I was on the phone with another leadership, and I have not stopped that legislative approach that Drug Policy Alliance and Marijuana Policy Project has advised the state of Ohio for the last 3 years.
All right. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you again.
All right,
Have a
you guys,
wonderful
we're
day.
going to go
Bye-bye.
on. You guys, we're going to go on break right now. We're going to go on a short break with some PCAs, and we'll be back talking about Bernie Sanders, liver cancer, and Nevada's tribe is going to build a cultivation and
production.
Marijuana
production
facility.
marijuana facility. All right, we'll be right back. Thank you.
Smoke break.
Listening to the Weekend 702 Nevada Cannabis News Hour. Now, here again, the Weekend Radio Team.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We just had a lively discussion about Responsible Ohio with Teresa Daniello, an Ohio activist. And now we're going to move on to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders made the Washington Post by saying, in the United States, we have 2.2 million people in jail today, more than any other country. And we're spending about $80 billion a year to lock people up. We need a major change in our criminal justice system, including changes in the drug laws. He said this at George Mason University in Virginia. Currently, he is the only candidate that is talking about cannabis. So if you are a one-issue voter, Bernie's the only game in town.
It's very, very true. He was, I guess, brave enough to come out and take a real stand for the issue during the first Democratic debate that was recently televised. You know, everyone else is just kind of giving their roundabout questions, and they just directly asked him, you know, would you vote yes for the upcoming legalization ballot initiative in Nevada? And he said, I probably would, which is a pretty good, I mean, that's the answer we're looking for. Mm-hmm. You know, everyone's like, oh, I don't know if I would, or, you know, I would consider doing this or that or the other, but
Typical
he's just
politics.
like, yeah, exactly. But he's just
Hillary
coming out and
basically
saying
said,
it. Well,
Hillary
she danced it.
She did. She said, I want to see how laws in legalization and recreational use in Colorado, Washington, and other states work before supporting federal changes on how marijuana is classified.
Well, we weren't asking her about federal legislation. We were asking how she would vote in a Nevada ballot initiative.
Oh,
So,
you know, dead-ends, all around the issue.
Got to walk the line.
Yeah, that's for sure. So basically, Bernie Sanders is the only game in town for if you are a one-issue voter. Does anybody else have anything to say about Bernie Sanders? Because you know what? 58% of Americans support legalization of cannabis.
I wish that some of my Republican colleagues would take a little bit harder look at the poll numbers from some of their various districts and on the national level before they start demonizing medical and recreational cannabis so quickly. The issue has evolved so rapidly that I would hope that, I don't want to say in order to remain relevant with a younger demographic, but in order to, I guess, honor what republicanism to me is supposed to be all about, which is doing your own thing and smaller government and letting states choose for themselves and, you know, all of those fundamental conservative platforms. I wish that they would actually hold to them instead of, if you live in a Republican state and your populace or your legislature decides to pass this bill, that you as an authority figure will decide to not implement that law or do what you can to undercut the integrity
religion into
of
it?
that law or
Push
something
your own
like that.
personal
Yeah,
agenda.
and that's not what it's supposed to be about for me. It's supposed to be about the will of the people, and if the people want it, then the people should be allowed to have it until they decide that it's not for them, at which point they can choose to undo it once again. But it's not up to one person to decide whether or not they hold sway for tens of thousands, hundreds, or potentially millions of people.
There's
in
more.
the States.
There's more support for medical marijuana than even the each individual politician even polls at either.
Oh,
too, as
absolutely.
well.
But, you know, there's a, how do I put this? There's an old stigmatization, you know, the old, you know, if you smoke dope, you're not going to be able to get anything done in this world, and it's bad for productivity, and it's just bad. It's just, we hate the dope, and we hate the dopers, and I'm not going to change my mind. And, you know, some of these guys, they fought in Vietnam, and,
Those
you know,
dopers vote.
Yeah, well, some of them do. If
those
dopers
dopers also
voted
become
more,
president.
we would have. If dopers voted more, we would have been way further along, you know, by now. And that's the sad truth of it. And I wish that I wish that it wasn't so, but it just is what it is.
Are
So,
any of the Republican candidates even talking about this issue?
In a negative light, absolutely. I heard Ohio Governor John Kasich come out when they asked him very briefly about it in Colorado, and he dismissed it very, very quickly and started talking about something else. And he's like, basically what his attitude is that's not important. Well, it's important in Colorado where they were having the debate, and it's important to millions and millions of Americans, and you're running on a national platform. Just because it might not be important in Ohio, which of course it is, as it's being voted on today. I was disappointed to see that the one chance they had to address that in a recreational state on television was so easily dismissed. Rand Paul has been, I guess, notorious for being wishy-washily, flip-floppingly supportive of cannabis here and there when it's convenient for him.
It's definitely not his dad.
But no, he is definitely not Ron. For good and the bad, I suppose. There are really no Republican candidates in the field that I'm aware of that are for it. Ben Carson is a medical doctor, and he very disappointingly has come out against it.
What about Donald Trump?
Regardless of the efficacy, he stays quiet on it. He hasn't said much. Donald Trump's a businessman. I think if he saw money in it, he'd jump on it in a heartbeat, and I think that's about as far as he wants to go with it. I don't think he wants to really get into
I read somewhere that he was supportive of medical marijuana.
I believe, he's a capitalist.
I believe he is probably at heart, but it goes against kind of the Republican Party line.
No, it doesn't. It goes against the religious right.
That's
one,
the
but
whole
not
thing.
the Republican. If you look at the party and what they represent, it really doesn't.
What they're supposed to represent.
Actually, there was just a poll that just came out, as you said, that 55% of registered voters in the U.S. want to end probation. This just came out yesterday. Prohibition. This just came out yesterday. A majority support for legalization exists among men and women polled and extends across all age groups except for those over 65 years old. 63% of Democrats and 59% of independents surveyed support legalization, while only 42% of Republicans are on board.
Wow, and this is from several large polling companies like Pew, CBS News, and Gallup.
Gallup's good.
Yeah,
I trust that.
Good. Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on actually to liver cancer. There's a study finding that cannabinoids have an anti-tumoral effect against HCC. HCC is known as hepatocellular carcinoma. Hepatocellular carcinoma is the cancer that you get from, I would think, syntax is the best way to say it. It's from alcoholism. It's from, fatty, eating a lot of fat foods, high fat foods, alcohol, autoimmune disease of the liver, hepatitis B and C. And they're finding that cannabinoids are actually helping with the hepatocellular carcinoma. And this HCC is the cancer that most people get. 75% of all liver cancers are HCC.
Oh, wow.
And so it's showing, once again, that if you drink and you smoke cannabis, it's actually kind of a protectant for your liver.
Cannabinoids, that's so broadly based. They didn't really specify, where it's coming from. They're just like cannabinoids in general are these proactive.
It's a new report published by PubMed.gov, and it demonstrates that cannabinoids from the marijuana plant could provide a new treatment of choice for those suffering from one of today's deadlier forms of liver cancer. And the study's abstract states, the present study is aimed to investigate the effects of cannabinoids as a novel therapeutic targeting HCC. By utilizing synthetic cannabinoids on damaged cell lines, the scientists discovered that even man-made cannabinoids inhibit growth of HCC, leading to a healthier liver and cell cycle arrest. So it stops the cancer, and it also helps regenerate or give a healthier liver.
You can make synthetic THC, from what I've heard. Is it possible to make synthetic CBD or some of the other cannabinoids of cannabis that either of you have heard about?
I have never heard of them making synthetic.
Sure, it's possible. It just
CBD.
hasn't been tried yet.
Sure,
they haven't found a reason to.
They're
maybe.
probably working on it. They just haven't done it yet.
Well, our wonderful producer has just enlightened me with a little bit of knowledge. Trailing back to our previous story about Bernie Sanders, we were talking about how did Donald Trump feel about marijuana legalization since he's so popular in the polls these days. Well, in 1990, he came out with a statement that said that he wanted to legalize all drugs. He said, we're losing the war on drugs. We're losing bad. That classic Trump tone of his. We need to change it. But now, in 2015, he was asked again. And he said, look, I don't think I would legalize marijuana if it was up to me. They have a lot of problems going on in Colorado, et cetera, so on and so forth. And then he went on to say, though, but if the people vote for it, they vote for it. And then kind of did his little shoulder shrug thing, and that was it. So, he didn't really go too much into it. But
so he's going to the will of the people.
Well, I would hope that he, in that statement, would take more of a Senator Mark Hutchinson approach during the 2013 legislative session, where he himself had really no interest in supporting our medical marijuana bill, but his constituents did.
I remember.
It, and he was gracious enough to bless us with his vote and support and co-sponsorship of the bill.
I remember, yeah.
So, I remember that, and I would hope that he would take he would just take that. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah, take the same line, do your job.
Right on.
So we'll see.
All right, you guys. What else are we going to talk about?
Well, we could talk a little bit about big business in marijuana. So Willie Nelson, there was an article in the New York Times recently that said that Willie Nelson didn't know whatever about marijuana. And one of the articles also said, too, that so Willie Nelson said, we're trying to monopolize it all. That's horseshit. That ain't right, and we'll do everything we can to keep that from happening. So he loathes big marijuana, but at the same time, he's licensing his name for marijuana products out there. So you have the Bob Marley family that's connected to Privateer Holdings. Yep. You have other Cheech and Chong and other individuals trying to even Jimi Hendrix too as well.
Purple Haze Holdings.
That is they're trying to capitalize on marijuana, and what do you guys think about that? What do you think about big marijuana and people branding? I have no problem with anybody that wants to try to establish a Dixie Elixir brand out there and get it on the national level. That you can go to Colorado, you can go to another state, and you can expect the same consistency between products, just like Chiba Chews, just like some of the other products that we see in other markets. Incredible Edibles, Pab Escondido's company too as well. That you would see this consistency between products, between markets, and I have no problem with that, whatsoever.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head, though. Willie Nelson says that he loathes big marijuana and big corporate, dealings and stuff like that, and yet he's lining up to do just the same thing.
Well,
with
he's
his
two
name.
sides of the same coin.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Is that for the longest time, Bob Marley's family said no, we don't want to have anything to do with that, because I think it was like one sister that kind of controlled the brand. Since that time, actually, they are going forward.
Lamb's Breath is coming on the market pretty soon.
They're going forward with their brand.
Mm-hmm.
They had the same battle with the Jimi Hendrix properties
for years.
Yeah, only the one brother was on board, and the rest of the family wasn't.
Yeah, Leon wanted it.
And Leon and them, they just finally fought all their battles, and they got it pushed through to where they can do it. It's America. I mean, this is what we're about. It's free market. I mean, I have no problem with somebody developing a brand as long as they're creating a quality medicine and they're not gouging people. You know what I mean?
Taking care of their employees
seriously.
and having good business practices. What more can I say?
If you can create a quality medicine and keep it constant, there's absolutely no reason it shouldn't be.
So how long have people been pushing celebrity endorsements? For decades. Mm-hmm. There's nothing, there's nothing new. It's nothing novel. It just seems, how many celebrities do we know that have their own alcohol brands? Snoop has his own alcohol. E40 has his own alcohol. I mean, I can point to dozens and dozens of individuals who have tried to enter, sure, of course, who have tried to enter numerous markets. It's just, this is the newest one. This one, I think, just will be more profitable than the others. It's just really as simple as that. I mean, everyone thinks it's this big taboo issue, but I point to the similarities between cannabis and gaming a lot, and I think people continue to ignore it. Back before 1955, there was no gaming control board in Nevada. Every gaming town was crooked, and you could just kind of do what you wanted. And people look back at these pioneers that were in back in the day, and they don't go, "Oh, those were just old, those were criminals and bad guys." Those were the pioneers of the great industry that we hold so dear in this state today. And no one, those were our heroes.
And what do you usually say, Perry? Pioneers get shot, settlers get the money?
Pioneers get killed, settlers get the land. That's how it goes.
Wow. Yeah, we hope. Yeah, we hope that's not going to be happening here.
Well, most of the pioneers have already been
2007.
killed here. Yeah, sure. Back in the day, back in 08, 2010, etc. We saw all those pioneers. The happiness consultant, completely legal. All those people. There were no parades for them. That was just the
Jolly
end of the
Green
story.
Meds.
Jolly
Green Meds.
Dozens and dozens of dispensaries got shut down. We remember, and now here we are, a few years later, and the settlers
Getting the money.
are getting the land. Exactly.
Yeah. Have you guys ever been too high?
Yeah, I got a report out of Ohio.
Speaking of Ohio,
Yeah, it just happened this month.
Not since I can remember.
I know, right?
Been a
We
long
try
time.
every day. It never happens.
Here we go. This goes way beyond the munchies. An Ohio man told a dispatcher that he was too high on marijuana. When officers arrived at his Austintown home to find him on the floor in a fetal position amid a plethora of Doritos and other junk food, according to the police report obtained by the Huffington Post. An officer said the 22-year-old, whose identity was redacted from the report, could be heard groaning in an upstairs room. The officer then found him amid the junk food, which was also included Petridge Farms goldfish, Chips Ahoy cookies.
Are you sure you didn't get this from The Onion?
Nope, this is from the Huffington Post. The man told the officer he could not feel his hands because he smoked too much weed. The report noted. He then sent the officer to his car where he had allegedly smoked the pot, and the cop recovered a glass pipe, rolling papers, roaches, and a glass jar of marijuana. He declined medical treatment, the report said.
I don't think I've ever been.
Well, it might have been all the junk food, too.
I think the moral
Yeah.
of the story is that we activists and advocates get in the bad habit of thinking that cannabis is for everyone. We think it is this wonderful thing. Everyone should try it. It's going to fix, heal the world and all this kind of stuff. And it very may well do that, but it definitely is not for
The
everyone.
gateway to Doritos?
Yeah.
Well, some people just don't know how to handle it. Maybe they shouldn't do it. Maybe probably shouldn't have done it alone was his first
Or
his first
maybe,
mistake.
yeah. And if he's inexperienced, maybe
Yeah.
start slow. We pitch that all the time, especially with the edibles here,
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Those are dangerous, my
Yeah,
friend.
start slow, a little bit at a time till you know what your body can take.
Well,
And-
I guess with the dosaging we have in Nevada, you can't get in too much trouble here. But if you go to California, I've seen brownies that have over 1,000 milligrams of THC in one brownie. And if you don't know what that is,
Oh my.
the Corova black bars,
Yeah.
they're quite vicious. So if you don't know what you're doing and you just go to a shop for the first time and buy yourself a brownie and eat the whole damn thing, you're going to find yourself in more trouble than you were looking for.
Well, I think I was one time. Somebody said, "Hey, do you want to try this?" And I said, "What is it?" And they said, "It's a dab." And they said, "Well, are you experienced in getting in medicating?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty experienced." And then I got DTFO.
Yeah, I had
And
that
if you
same
don't know what
experience.
that means, I sweated. I couldn't get up. I vomited. I felt like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. But you know what? You know what the joy of this is? You get over it.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
not
quickly.
going to kill you.
No LD50.
No,
What?
definitely not.
There's no LD50 for cannabis. I mean, you have to smoke 2.5 pounds in 15 minutes to be able to die from
Well,
cannabis
even with the
consumption.
concentrated
Do you wanna try?
dosages we have available today, I don't think it's
we
possible.
can give it a try. We
And
can-
then
we
you
can make
wouldn't
a
be
good-
dying from the cannabis. You'd be dying from the lack of oxygen.
Do we have
Water
any other
kills.
relevant stories here? Before
Nevada
we-
tribe
before we
is going to
sign off.
build a medical marijuana facility up
That's a
in
good
northern
one.
Nevada.
Yeah, the Piute and the Shoshone tribe of Nevada and Oregon will be building a medical marijuana facility. I hope the DEA, the federal government, leaves them alone and allows them their economic opportunities that they absolutely deserve.
As a sovereign nation.
This is in Fort McDermott. This is the Fort McDermott Paiute, not our Southern Nevada Paiute tribe here, and that's about 40 or 50 miles from the Oregon border.
I'm sure they have some friends down here that they'll let them know how it goes, though.
Of course, I'm sure it's a test run, no doubt.
All right, you guys, this is the end of our first show back on the air, and I'd like to thank you guys for all tuning in. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Inyo Fine Cannabis and Nevada Pure. And stay tuned for the next show on.
Do we want to say their locations too,
VANR?
where we can find both of them?
Oh, well,
Absolutely.
Inyo Fine Cannabis is number 2 Maryland Parkway, right at
Maryland
Maryland
Sahara.
Maryland Sahara on the they're
Sahara
located
side.
on the north side or the south side of Sahara on the north side of the shopping center they're in. And
We'd also like to thank Las Vegas Relief for sponsoring our Halloween party. They were very gracious. You guys go in and visit our sponsors and tell them that you heard it on the We Can Nevada Cannabis News show. And please use responsibly.
I'd also like to thank Vegas All Net Radio for allowing us to come back and bring our message back to the city here. It means it really does mean a lot to be back at home. It was in the same studio we had the pleasure of doing business with last time. We are more than grateful for the opportunity, and we're just hoping to continue this relationship into the future and continue to build bridges. And we just cannot sing their praises enough.
Yep.
So,
and one more sponsor, Dr. Reefer. By the way, if you're looking for your card, go into Dr. Reefer and ask for the We Can special pricing, and you'll get in and out the door for $280. That's $120 savings. So make sure you call them and ask for the We Can special pricing.
a continued supporter of ours.
We love Dr. Reefer.
We were down this whole time. We didn't have our radio show. They were continued to be supporters of us. They always have our back. We will, we'll never stop supporting them. Thank you guys so much for everything, all of you.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank everybody.
Well, once again, I guess we're out of material. We covered all the bases, and thank
I
you
think
all
we
for
did.
coming out. And
All right.
I
We're
guess,
done.
we're
Woohoo!
going
Next
home, and
week.
we'll see you next week. Thank you again.
Bye-bye. Bye.